Welcome to the second episode of the Canway Youth Decode video series. Canway Youth is a nonprofit organization focusing on positive youth development, and in the Decode videos, we try to translate leading-edge science, technology, and deep insights into actionable knowledge for the youth. I'm Andre Rayner, president of Canway Youth. We are very privileged today to have with us Dr. Xin Zhou, a postdoctoral research fellow in Professor Michael Snyder's lab at Stanford University. Dr. Zhou received his PhD in genetics and genome science at the University of Connecticut Health Center and the Jackson Laboratory of Genome Medicine, and among other areas conducts research to better understand an exciting field called the microbiome and how it relates to our health. Today, I'll be asking him about his research in this field and key takeaways for teens and young adults. Dr. Zhou, thank you so much for taking your time to be with us here today.
Thank you for having me.
To start it off, Dr. Zhou, could you please explain to our audience a little bit about what exactly is the microbiome, when did we start investigating it, and why?
Yeah, so the fun fact is we're not alone. We're surrounded by bacteria and virus and fungus living in and around us. Mm-hmm. And one of the major population of bacteria living in us is what we call gut microbiome. And people found that we had about like 1,000 different strains of bacteria constantly living in everybody's gut. Mm-hmm. And they're making a lot of different things for us. So we think they have a significant health impact for each individual.
And then could we please tell us a little bit more about what specific research you do and what kind of key questions you're trying to answer here?
Yeah, so we found just like your genome, your microbiome is slightly different between individuals. Mm-hmm. And then we also found, not like your genome, which are constant in each individuals, we found the microbiome is slightly different between individuals and slightly different even within individuals, day by day. So my research area has been focused on how dynamic is the microbiome within individual and within a population, and especially when we have a cohort that has certain disease, how does the microbiome change with the disease, and how does the microbiome play a role in contributing to the development of that type of disease, especially metabolic disease such as type 2 diabetes, and also how if you change your diet, change your lifestyles, all of a sudden start to exercise or got an infection, how that is going to affect your microbiome dynamics.
And one of the areas that people may be a little shocked to learn about is how big of an influence your gut microbiota has on your psychological health. And we tend to think of our minds separate from our bodies, but there's a very big connection between the humble gut and your psychological signs like depression, anxiety, stress, etc. Could you say a little bit more about the positive influence that bacteria can play in that?
Yeah, so at the beginning, we're thinking the theory that what you want to eat is actually what your gut microbiome tells you. So, for example, if you want to eat an apple, sometimes it's because your gut microbiome lack the resource that the apple could produce, and then it's release the signal to your body for asking for apple. And then more recently, we found that the gut microbiome actually release a lot of metabolites that are helping with your mental health. And if you're stressed, you lack certain metabolites that the microbiome could produce. And it's also because in many ways, there's like chronic low-grade inflammations that are caused by your gut microbiome community overgrowth of certain bad bacteria. And then in a lot of cases, that the good bacteria could outcompete these bad bacteria so that they don't release these detrimental signals anymore.
And another area that people might seem to gloss over or overlook is actually how complex and how massive your microbiome is. And could you maybe touch a little bit about maybe some specific bacteria or just the size of that?
Yeah, in a cohort we're monitoring with a population have mental stress, we found there's a group of bacteria called Prevotella. So if we measure like how sick these people are in terms of their stress scores, and then we found if people carrying Prevotella, All these stressed individual carrying prevotella has a slightly better readout compared to all the stressed people who doesn't carry the prevotella. So we think there is something to do with this unique bacteria called prevotella in releasing signals to make people less stressed.
And given all this kind of evidence and theories on how much we're affected by the bacteria, what are some of like the key takeaways or actionable things that youth, teen adults could do to kind of take control of that?
Well, I think it's crucial to maintain a good gut microbiome because that's something gonna affect your longitudinally. And then one thing I do notice, or the scientific community do notice, is the modern industry has a lot of processed food that
Yeah.
are bad for the microbiome. So for young people at your age, I think it's important to know what is a good food and what is a bad food.
Yeah. And many in our audience who may want to learn a little more or start taking action now might be ready, but they're not sure exactly where to start and they're not willing to try and go through a very difficult scientific paper. What are some easy and accessible recommendations you could provide to these people?
So one easier way will be to read books written by scientists. For example, there is a book written by Dr. Schneider around the genome medicine. So that's a good start. I think another one will be the website that cites the scientific paper, but explain that to the lay reader, such as the Scientific American.
Any last comments, advice to the people out there?
I think for people at your age, it's important to sleep more, to exercise more,
Yeah.
and to monitor your daily sugar intake. Don't eat too much sugars. And also don't feel so stressed about all the schoolworks.
Yeah. Dr. Zhou, many thanks for taking your time and all the words of wisdom you've imparted on us today.
Well, thank you for inviting me.